Welcome, everyone. So tonight we have John going to do Peppermills. Have some business items first.
Let's switch so that it matches.
How about that?
That's a little bit better.
Okay. So we're going to talk a little bit about the symposium that's coming up. How many people here have registered for the symposium?
Maybe.
Okay. I'm going to ask people when I get home, I'll send an email out to let me know who's registered. I can't really see the database of the registered people. I think we're in pretty good shape for load in, load out, and we're getting the room filled. Each room, we need 3 people, 2 for the video system and 1 for a helper. I think we're getting those filled out. But we did have a $500 donation for a grant, and we're going to select the winner of that tonight. And I have a random number generator that we're going to use. And unfortunately, I don't know why this is coming up green, but we have 14 candidates that asked. And make sure it's still, we got 15 now. So we got 1 more. So what we're going to do is pick a random number from 1 to 15. And the order goes in by the time that they register. So the first person is number 1, the second is number 2, and so on. So the winner is number 2. So who is number 2?
Somebody who did it pretty quick.
Yeah. So number 2 is Mike Webb.
Congratulations.
Mike is here tonight. Congratulations. So thank you all for playing. We'll get back to something decent here. So we'll work out how to make that happen. Just remind everyone that the March meeting is the second week of the month, and it's going to be Richard Raffin. And Doug here is sort of making that happen. And it's going to, you will need to register for it. We'll send out information on how to do that. But once you register, we'll send you the Zoom link shortly after.
What it is you'll be given a link in Zoom. You go in and register, and then Zoom generates a link for you to go in and join that day.
Okay, so I think that's going to be a really interesting presentation. The
Richard's topics.
it's
Well, he is he's not doing a demo because the shop has 0 Wi-Fi. So it's an 8-week with Richard Raffin. He's going to talk about the slide, how he got into it, and how turning has changed and the tools have changed since when he started to what he is doing now. What the projects were like then and what people are doing now. And give some insight and inspiration and all that. And part of the registration is you'll be able to ask a question. Pose a question, you'll get that, you'll go over it, and if it's not in his regular presentation, then we just open it up to Q&A live, and you can ask them questions.
good.
But those who register and post a question get first dibs.
Good. Okay. So you may have seen some emails from me about a wood czar. What we're looking for this year is maybe offering our members wood that they can buy from the club that our teams have gone out and cut and into blanks. And Dave Wood is right? Yeah, Dave. You want to talk a little bit about what happened on Saturday or Sunday?
Yeah, we had a medium to small size wood cutting party last Sunday. It was maple. Most of it's at my place. It's cut and planks, roughly 30 wax ends, so just so we get some time. Cut it. So decided that intention, I think, is to use a fair amount of it for the training classes in the future, like the 201 layouts, bold blanks. It's nice wood, it's very good maple. Tree was healthy when it came back, it's just a small place.
So we have a place to store it. Steve here? Okay. So we have a place to store it, and what I'm looking for Woods are just someone to take the calls and help us make a decision whether this is a good opportunity or not. Doesn't have to do the work necessarily. And maybe to make it easier, I thought if we had someone on the east side and someone on the west side, when an opportunity comes in, we could have either person go out and take a look at the opportunity and let us know whether we should pursue it or not. So yeah, if you're interested, let me know. For gathering the guilds, it's the last week in April, and we've got a 30-foot booth there, and we're offering all of our members the opportunity to join that, join us there. I have 4 people already that have signed up to sell stuff there, and I'll let the rest of the membership know next week that we can open it up. So the idea there is that the cost of the 30-foot booth is what was it? $750, about $1,500 for the booth, and we'll pay for that from the commissions from sales. So if you sell a $100 bowl, it may be like a 15% payment to the club to go towards the cost of the show. Excuse me. So the idea is that the general membership's not going to pay anything for the show. It's just the people that are selling stuff there. So it's a good opportunity. I think at 30 feet we can have 6 to 8 people sell reasonably well. So more information will come out of that. That's all for the business side. Do we have any new members tonight? Go ahead.
My name is John Woolman. Signed up, I think in November, first meeting in person.
Okay. How long have you been turning?
Since I was in 8th grade.
Okay.
Yeah. Doesn't say I'm good, it just says I've been doing it a long time, hacking up a lot of wood.
Okay. Well, welcome. Anyone else new? Okay. It's amazing. We're getting about 5 new members a month, and I just keep seeing new people pop up. So we're doing well.
John,
Here's something.
yeah, I'm new. Just joined up.
Who's talking?
Roger Levine.
Okay. Did you have something to say?
No, you were asking about new members. I'm a new member.
Oh, okay. Well, welcome.
Thank you.
Just tell us a little bit about how long you've been turning and what you're looking for.
Just refining skills. I've been turning for 20 years or so, seriously for about 5 or 6. I upgraded my lathe and some tools, bowls and boxes, some spindle work as well. I've done a few Peppermills and curious to see what this technique is.
Oh, cool. Okay. Well, welcome.
Thanks.
Oh, my God, it's blinking so much. Okay. Let's see. John, you have anything to say about AEW?
AEW, wrapping up everything planned for the week of proposing coming up in June, first weekend in June, and then well on our way to selecting delivery for Portland. in 2020.
Cool. Okay. We have, tonight after the demo, we have the raffle, and I think tickets are still available. Yeah. I don't see how much we have. Looks like someone brought some Peppermill books.
That's why you Peppermill likes.
Yeah.
There's like,
Yeah,
I was gonna say, there's a Peppermill over there, there's some set of things to go after.
Okay. So show and tell. Who wants to do show and tell tonight? Volunteer or I'll volunteer for you. Kevin? Phil? Want to show and tell? Okay. We got a lot.
First, we have a jig and some pieces made by John Sutter with it. Want to talk about that?
I was trying to come up with an item for Christmas time I could make. Small one. Family. A year ago, started out with little box. I was trying to figure out a way to decorate the top. And basically, that the parts in place, vacuum and like that here. Turn it as fast as you can stand it, turn it. Tool rest and the tool. Set the tool rest, eighth of an inch. And then got these slots, you just move in. Handles on the far side of the tool rest. So you just work down the road. This is a piece of high-speed steel, and then actually sold for metal. Quite inexpensive.
Hey, Roger,
Yeah,
This,
can you fix that camera? It keeps blinking.
I know. We're working on it.
Thank you.
anyway, fun process. Anybody has any questions?
Thank you. Yeah, this is the feature.
What's this idea for the kid?
The divine intervention. And then next I have three pieces here, on a jar girl vessel. This is a maple vessel that's pyro textured, painted black. And then this is a little gold vessel. And then next we have Roger Brooks, some boxes. Talk about your boxes, Roger.
Yes,
You want time?
those are our boxes.
You might.
Okay. So the main thing is, I got a spiraling tool, and all these are using the spiraling tool either for a crosshatch or just straight spiraling. Yeah, that's a good idea. Thank you. And they fit pretty well. It's one that's a little bit loose, but for gathering the guild, I thought since we have a lot of good bowl makers and we have a lot of other good people, I thought I would focus on making some lower cost boxes. So I'm gearing up for gathering the guilds.
If you haven't looked at it, take a look at my stuff. it's a really neat effect, especially like I like this one. It's like it has a screen over it with the cross hatching screen. Next, we have a couple of bowls by Dave Williams. Say something about it.
Both of them I left home for once at a time they were very bad. And I left them as blocks. Except this was the other one I did now several years ago. It was heavily molded black. Yeah, something will color can it's not but
Not bad. Next is like catalog bowl.
I didn't have to do the whole 2 years ago. See
Just 99%. Mike, you want to talk about your catalog bowl?
These catalogs, which I found up in Seattle about 5 years ago. Catalogs is a very rare Mexican and Central American range, red like this to almost black. The thing about it is it is hard, it's like iron, has a density of 1.1, so you don't build your grab in catalogs. And it finishes just beautiful. It's hard to find, but if you see it, buy it. This I left very plain because the wood speaks for itself. I just want to get it out of the way.
There's a few pieces by Bill Carroll. Is he still here? Run away. You don't want to be on him.
Oh, here he comes.
So that is a piece that I sandblasted in Kevin Jasipol's shop. That's for a nice afterwards. Those are 2 pieces, kind of opinions and economics outside of what inside of it and left after looking for inside one. And then that sequels shop, I sandblasted a piece of wood that I had bleached already. Feels like a shell. I might bleach it.
Awesome, thank you. Next, we have a few Peppermills by our demonstrator, John Beechwood. Can I say something about it?
All right. So the only reason I bought this particular set is this one and this one were maybe the same like I just cut it in half. But if you look at the character of the wood, you can see that they look completely different because of the shape. So when you're making your peppermills, look at the grain, look at the shape you're getting, what color you're getting. And even though these are made from the same pieces, they look completely different. And we'll go more about how they're made. Oh, and I always sell my bottom right pepper grinders with a coaster because it's not a need to like a
Awesome, thank you, everybody.
See the last one?
That's it.
Well, John, you're up. So just to let everyone know, we have the recording here that we're making tonight on Zoom, but John and I also got together Monday, and we did a dedicated video for the Peppermill. So you'll be able to watch either this one, or I think the dedicated one will be edited very cleanly. So, and it went longer, so probably more good stuff in that than you'll hear tonight. Because he's going to rush through this in an hour.
All right. The one we filmed is the one I donated for about
Oh,
That's
okay.
the one we felt.
Cool. Okay, you're up, my friend.
So I talked a little bit about design. Go ahead and switch. This one's made from a piece of laminated wood that I just had a bunch of stuff laying around, so I glued it all together, decided to make that one. When you're doing a laminated one, you gotta be more careful because the density of the wood changes, and when you're drilling it, your forstner bit won't walk. And then, like I said, I always sell them with a coaster so that you don't need to. We're gonna crush contact. And Penn State sells one very similar. There's not much difference. The measurements are all the same. The working is very similar. I don't know that there's a lot of difference other than the crush grind one seems to be a little bit tighter on the stem. So you don't get any wobble at the top. But the way I make them, I don't get any wobble at it. If I use the cheaper one, it still comes out the same. Thanks. I realized what I got was
Okay, Joe, the Zoom guys aren't hearing you.
okay.
Is that on?
Yeah, it's on.
I'm here, yeah.
So talk again.
We're getting ready to get started. Can you hear me?
Keep talking.
So today we're going to use a walnut plank. And this one is about 2 3/4 in diameter and 8 inches long. I can make them longer. If I make them longer, I tend to put a steady rest in the middle because it gives more vibration. And I'm going to do it all in one piece. I'm going to do the whole thing start to finish without taking it out of the chunk. Except when I finish the top piece, I'll take that out of the chunk, we'll flip that over and finish the top. So one drill all the way through, right up to the top, and then I drill that one piece at the top afterwards. So when I do them, I'm very careful about sizing my tenon because since I'm going to drill it all in one spot, I want this tenon to be tight, meaning I don't want much more than an 1/8 of an inch gap in my jaws, so I get full contact all the way around it and it doesn't move. And just to make sure I'm all the way in, when I rough this out, if everything's right, that is perfect. That's off. Then I might as well leave it up like that. And then I tend to always do both sides of my chuck. They say it doesn't make a difference. I always seem to feel playing one side. First step, we're going to drill.
Sorry, everyone. They're not hearing you, so just try. Yeah, I don't know why they're not getting it.
Switch the microphone.
Yeah.
that any better? Is that any better? Can you hear me? Better? Yeah, I can't hear myself now. I can't hear anything now.
No, you have it plugged in?
Plugged in.
You didn't turn it off.
No. There we go. Still not working. This one's still not working. There we go.
It is working, but you need more volume.
Okay, keep
Is
talking.
that better? Can they hear me? Any better? Sounds like it's going up. Can they hear me now? Making progress here?
Keep talking.
All right. So now we've got this mounted up, and you can see it's running, the center's running pretty good. Check it one more time. Yep. When you get these directions for the crush grind ones are met. So I always convert them. And when you convert them, you'll find that where they put 42.5 millimeters, that's the same as the first step, which is 1.75 inches. The second step is 1.5 inches. The third step is this calls for 1 3/8 inches. The other set calls for 1 16 inches. This part right here is critical. The critical measurements would be the piece at the top and the cylinder right here. And there's another way to do this. This is a mill drill, and it's made to do, once you pre-drill a hole this size, it's made to go in and do the first 2 steps all in one piece. I don't have one of these yet. This goes right to the tail stuff, and we'll talk about that in a minute, about getting the flexion out of your tail stuff. But I'm going to have to try one of these out and see if I like it. I think it's going to be a time saver. The only thing critical about the don't want to hold on to it because it just spins and it bends behind. But when you bend it, steer to the right part of the balance, it takes the hand out. So the Forstner bits I use, I always use the ones that have the hexagon. I don't use the round ones when I'm drilling Peppermills because no matter how tight you get them, they're going to slip. So I always use the hexagon ones. I always put them pretty far into my drill chuck, get them good and tight. Then I always make sure that my tailstock, the quill is retracted into the tailstock as far as I can get it. Because the further out it goes, the more play you can get out of it. The other thing I do is I'll take my quill stop and I'll just make it so it touches and then there's no play in the quill. So when I'm drilling it, it's going to be straight and it's going to be in the center. And I do want to check the end of this one. Oh, good. Well, if I have to talk louder, I can. Yeah, I'm going to true this face up real quick. And all I did there is I just flushed off the end so that when this starts, it starts flat. And for the first step, I normally go about 250 RPMs, because if not, you fill your shop up with smoke. We're going to drill this first step to down 3/4 of an inch. The depth of this first step isn't critical. You just need to have enough room so that your grinder mechanism doesn't hit the table. I need to go about 1/8 of an inch more. Tailstock was sliding on me. So now we're right at 3/4. We're going to switch. And this one is 1.5 inches, and the directions say give you a total depth of 2 1/8. I tend to go a little bit deeper and make that cavity just a little bit longer, because all it does is allow more pepper in the grinder at the bottom. You're not going to hurt anything by drilling this next step deeper, as long as it's in the center. I usually go about 1/4 inch deeper, so I'll go to a total depth of about 2.5, a little less, a little more. And the other thing, and we'll get to that one when we cut the lip in there for the grinder mechanism to lock. And there's another reason, but we'll get to that when I cut those. I cut them a little bit deep. And then for this step, I like to spin the lathe a little bit faster. So I'll go about 1,000 RPMs. And all I'm going to do now is I'm going to touch that center of this bit into the very center. Because if I was off a little bit on the first, this trues it up. And you can see I got no vibration right there. And the tip of that Forstner bit just started grabbing. This Forstner bit, that tip is just a square. It's not really sharp. So if I'm a little bit off at the end of that first step, I'm going to be off on the next step if I don't make that center true again. But we're going to go back down to 250 RPMs. We're going to make sure our tailstock is locked down. And then again, I take the quill lock and I just put a little resistance, and all that does is takes any play out of the quill in your tailstock. A little bit faster. I backed up to make sure all the chips are coming out. I also know that when I get almost to the total depth of this bit, I'll be about as deep as I want to be. And I am about 2 3/8, so I can go just a little bit more. And I can feel a little bit of vibration, so I'm going to rechuck this. I have a habit of checking this to make sure it's always tight. I'm gonna go just a little bit more. And I know I'm dead center again, because when I slid that in, it didn't hit the sidewall. Now we're all the way at 2.5 for our total depth. Take this one out. And this is 1 1/16. This one isn't a critical size, and it's not as critical if this one gets off a little bit when we're all the way in. It's not going to make a difference, because that last step will be drilled on the same center as the first two. So these two will always line up with that last step. And again, I'm going to speed this up just to get that point started. This one I drill about 500. It's a little bit smaller. And for this step, I know I'm going to have to add an extension. But if I start this hole right now and I'm dead center, when I put the extension on, it's going to want to try to follow the hole I already started. So I'm less likely to be off. And then I don't know if you can see it on the camera, but if you look right here, you can tell that that first hole is still dead on because it's riding right on the lip. So my first hole is still dead center. And that's as far as I can go with that step. So take this out. So now we're gonna clean this out. And this is a step that I do because later on, it'll help if we have to, when we flip this. So I'm going to use my Nova tenon tool, and this is set to the same angle as my Nova jaws. So when I flip this over just to trim up the inside, I'll have a spot to put the tenon, and it doesn't affect the pepper grinder because it's below where the mechanism is. But I'm going to cut a very short tenon in there. And flush. And I'm running at 500 RPMs when I'm doing this. And I'll run 500 when I cut the lock for the mechanism. That's all I need. The next step, we're going to cut the little groove to receive this little tab right here. And in some instructions, they tell you you can cut that off. So if you cut that off, then you got to CA glue this or epoxy this whole assembly in. I tend to use this, but I spot glue here. That way, if this thing ever fails and I have to knock it out, it'll come out. But if I glue the whole cylinder or epoxy it in here, then if it fails, the whole thing is trash. And I'm going to use Nova, or Robert Sorby makes this. This is engineered so that this shoulder hits on the first step. So the tool, when you're cutting, this shoulder hits right here on this step and cuts this little groove right where it needs to be. The first time I did this, it was a little unnerving. The first time I saw it done, Mike Meredith did it, and he just went, psh. And then I tried it, and I'm like, wait a minute, how come that didn't work? Well, it takes practice. Yeah. So like I said, this is made to ride on that first lip. So right there, we're at 500 RPMs. And this sounds way worse than it is. And then the depth is controlled by this, the lands right here. So now I've got the recess in there, but I have found that on the crush grinds, they don't line up as well with these. And I've had a couple of them that will start to spin if you don't glue them. And the reason is because the width of this part of the tool isn't wide enough for this whole tab to drop in. So I use the other Sorby pepper grinder tool and I cut that a little bit deeper, which is also the reason why I took that second 1.5 inches and I made that just a little bit deeper to allow this enough room to clear to lock in. The same thing on the top piece. Sometimes that little tab doesn't like to grab. This is this one's just as easy. So I found my first recess. Now I'm just going to go back in a little bit. And I just increased that little channel that's in there. I just increased it this way. So now there's no way that's going to get bound up. It's those little tabs are going to pop out and they're going to lock in there a lot better. And it's less likely to slip. Not impossible. But that's why I use a little bit of CA glue. So now, the way I do it is I'm going to figure out where I'm going to part these two. And this one's 8 inches. I need at least 2 inches for my top piece. So I'm going to mark out 2 inches. And then I'm going to mark a 1/2 inch. And then I'm going to check my overall depth again. I'm at 2.5, and I'm going to mark 2.5. The only reason that I mark my 2.5, and I usually go give it a little extra, is because when I start shaping this, I don't want to go too far in down here. I can shape it here so it makes it easier for a hand. But if I get too far down here, then I don't have as much meat. So I mark it so I know when I'm making my shape where I have to stop. And then I'll tell you why I just marked that 1/2 inch. Because once we get done drilling the center, we're going to part this right here. And we're going to part it at a taper. And what I'm talking about is this has a taper on it. This has a taper on it. This design makes it so you can fill it without a funnel. Because all you do is you dump it in here and it falls down. When you lock them together, this taper holds this thing solid and it makes it easy to move, and it's always aligned. If you put a lip in there, like a lidded box, sometimes you get a little bit off. Sometimes if your mechanism isn't dead center, it'll bind on one side, not the other. And that's why I do them all in one piece. And I'm going to measure how deep I need to drill that. And maybe I'll hit the end of it. So from the end to this line is about 5 3/4. I'll give myself a little bit of room. So we're going to switch.
When I started doing Peppermills, I followed the directions. You have to do it 2 inches of pieces. What the last part of video, they do the same thing, 2 individual pieces. I had a hard time matching them up. I found this technique to do the aha moment to really make it easy to do.
And I do flip the top. I flip the top over to finish it off, but the mechanics of it are all done from this end. And then I always keep my little Allen wrench for this on here using a rubber band, but I also use that rubber band to tell me how deep I got to go. So with this one, I want to go 5. I think we're going to back this up and give me a little bit more room on the top. 2 inches there. I think we're going to go a little bit less. I'm going to give myself a little bit more room on the top.
Also, a lot of the videos and instructions would have to do drill both ends in the middle. This way, just drill it once. And look down.
So I moved my line back. So I'm going to give myself a little bit more room on my head on the top. And I don't normally go more than 8 inches. Usually I try to get between 6 and 7 because they just seem more, most people will use a 6 or 7 inch. You make a 9 or a 10 inch and it'll sit on your, so it'll sit there forever unless somebody specifically wants one that big. So I reduced that down to 4 7/8. So we're going to go 4 7/8. I'm going to move my rubber band. And this is my depth gauge now. And then we know, and see how that slid right in there, and it didn't catch. So we know everything's still lined up. And again, I'm keeping my quill pretty far into my headstock for stability. If I start getting this way out there, it's going to be less stable. We're going to slow it down. If this step gets a little bit off, when we flip this over, we'll correct it. And at home, I just blow it out with air. I should have made a shorter one.
That's all the deeper we're going with that. I'm not going to grab it right now because it's probably hot. So now we just got to get all this stuff out of there real quick. Make sure our chuck is tight. So now I'm going to take a piece of sandpaper and I'm just going to real quick sand right here. I'm going to sand this little bevel and this little bevel so that when I put this together, this thing goes together easier. I just got to make sure I don't take my tenon out. Good. I want to true up my bottom just a little bit so it sits flat. We're good. So now I'm going to bring up my tailstock with a live center on it. And that hits right into that second cavity we drilled. Good to go. So now I know I'm going to part it right here. So I'm going to start my part right now. I'm not going to go all the way through, but I'm going to start it. And what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to go from this line to this line at an angle. And I'm trying to hit the top of that hole I just drilled. So there's a couple tools you can use for that. You can use a standard parting tool with the wide center that gives you a relief. But this one, the width of it is too wide for the tight radius we're going to be turning. This one will work. It's not as wide this way. So the tighter the radius, the narrower this needs to be. And since we're shooting a relatively precise cut in a pretty tight radius, I know I have to cut almost dead center, because if I go up or down, it's going to want to bind. And I know that I don't want to be too wide. And I know that this one is too wide. This is too wide this way and too wide this way. This one's much thinner. But you can also modify a parting tool. And this one I ground down and I changed the angle on the tip so that this almost acts like a negative rake scraper when it's cutting, and it does a really clean job. It's also thin. I ground the bottom is a little bit narrower than the top so it doesn't bind, and it's not quite as wide as this one. But for today, I'm going to go ahead and use this one that's readily available to anybody. Well, I don't know what the angle is. I'm just trying to make sure that I know the top of my hole is right here. I know I want to part it about right here to get a nice taper. So I just eyeball it. And I want to go about 500 RPMs. And we're going to just start right here. So now we know the dimensions of our pepper grinder. Now we're just going to shape it. We're going to shape it all in one piece. And you can get as creative or as straight as you want. This one, we're just going to do a simple design on it. Then I'm going to go about 1,000 RPMs. I'm using a spindle gouge. And then, like I said before, I know I didn't want to turn down until I hit that first mark. I'm going to take this from two different angles so that I get a smoother cut. Two different sides. I'm coming from this way down and this way down. If I try to go up the hill, I won't get a clean cut. And I'm okay if the bottom is just a little bit less diameter than the top. So this is where people grab it, right here. If somebody has a smaller hand and you have too big of a pepper grinder, it's hard for them to hold on to. So I tend to make this a little bit narrower so that just about anybody can grab it comfortably. And then I'm going to give one cleanup cut on the bottom. We're going to go a little bit faster. Okay, 20 minutes. All right. I'm going to chamfer this in just a little bit. All right, since Roger told me I only have 20 minutes left, we're not going to worry. I still got a nice clean cut. You could start at 220 and sand that and it'll be fine. But in the interest of getting this done, we'll do the top. And for this one, I'm going to match the bottom a little bit. pretty good. So normally when I do these, I would right now, I would sand and finish it. But because we only have how many minutes? We're going to go ahead and part this off. So I'm going to loosen this up and back it away a little bit. I'm still at 500 RPMs. I want to switch tool rests. And I want this, I want my tool to be straight 90 degrees from my tool rest. So when I'm going in, if the tool rest is cocked one way or the other, that you have a tendency for your parting tool to want to walk to one side or the other. So we're going to make sure that we're pretty close to straight in. And I'm a little bit far away from it, it may seem, but the reason I'm far away from it is in case I have to drop this tip down to find my center better. You got to be real careful when you're pulling your tool back that you don't get a catch, because that can be crazy. And I put a light right here, so now I can see that my cut is working right where I want it to be. I'm not forcing the tool in, I'm just letting the tool do the cut. I'm getting close, I can hear it. So I can hear the tone change just before I go through. And I hit right dead at the top. Right at the top of that hole I drilled earlier. Like Mike said, you do about 50 or 100 of them and you get better. So this right now, because we have a center hole that was started from here and it may have drifted a little bit, we're going to clean this off. And this landing right here needs to be the same diameter as a little bit bigger than this, so that when this goes in, it has a flat landing. I don't know if you can you see that right here? Do you have that camera right there? So if you look right here, is that better? So if you watch, when I shut this off, it's a little bit off. So if I start drilling my top right now, I might not be lined up. That's why I shoot right for the top of the hole I just drilled, because I know I'm going to face this off, get rid of that hole, and start the next cut with the last drill bit dead center to this. And then it will be dead center to the first two holes I drilled in the bottom, in theory. Okay, last drill, 7/8 drill bit. This one, I drill it at least 1.5 inches. The reason I drill it 1.5 inches is if you look at this right here, you want this stem from the bottom of the pepper grinder to go past this little spring mechanism. If it doesn't lock in and it's not tight. So the distance from there to there right now is 1.5 inches. So this headpiece is probably, it's plenty big enough that I can go to 2 inches. By going to 2 inches, all I'm doing is giving myself enough room here. And these things fit tight. So I try to go 2 inches. Minimum 1.5 inches. And now I've got no way, nothing's going to make, yeah. So this, not all the way in. So this is centered with this again. So it's going to be right in the middle of the top piece. And you can see, like, our first step, there's no deflection in that bit. So since we're drilling this step the same way we drilled the first step, they'll be in alignment. And I know there's a scale on the quill. I just don't always trust them. So we're down 1 3/8 inches. Right. We're deep enough now. Almost 2 inches. Now we're going to use the same tool we used earlier to cut that little groove in there. This tool has a mark right here. That's the depth for the top piece. So we're going to go in here with this. We just cut that first groove. Now this one, the landing, so now we know our first groove is right here. I can make it deeper just by moving it back. And that's going to allow a little bit more room for those pieces to lock in. And again, I'm going to cut a tenon. Not much of a tenon. And that's not very deep in there, so it's not going to affect how that piece locks in. So now this piece is done. That part of it. That tenon I just cut works perfect with this little set of jaws. We're just going to put that in there. We're going to set it up. We're going to use our tail stop to make sure we're dead center. So I must have done it right because that lined up. This allows me to finish the top. And it doesn't take a whole lot of force because the tenon is cut at a pretty good size that I get good contact and it's pretty stable, which you'll see in a minute. If you hear a crack, you know you went too far. Like I said, normally when I do this, I would go ahead and sand and finish this right here. But, and this is on there pretty tight. It's not going anywhere. That said, I still do pretty light cuts. So now the top's done. And as luck would have it, I have another set of Nova jaws that, believe it or not, fit this. And that's in there tight. It's not moving. But all I'm going to do for this is all I want to do is clean up the end of that hole where it frayed. And a lot of times I'll either do it with just a quick piece of sandpaper, but in order to get it done quick, I'm going to take that off. I am going to sand that throat because the only thing I can't fix later is this right here. So if I need to do something to this after it's assembled, the way the chuck is right now, with the whole mechanism in there, I can stuff a rag around the part of the pepper grinder coming out, and I can put this back in the lathe. And then when you see, they fit perfect. Now all we need to do is throw the mechanism in. And we're going to do the bottom one first. This one. And when I do it, I just get it started in there like so. I use the thick CA glue and I put 3 dots. And then I have a socket because the crush grind ones seem to go in really tight. I'm just going to check. Make sure it's all the way in. The socket, that socket is the right size to fit all the way around the outside. Now, if you look, that is dead center. This is dead center right down the middle. Now I need to put this one in. For this one, I made a tool. I took the end cut off of one of these, put a handle on it, so I can pop that on there. And now all I got to do is get this one started. And again, we're going to go 3 dots of CA glue. Just so that this thing doesn't spin ever. And I use the thick when I do these. And then we're just going to push it and it seats just like that. Then last step, we're going to cut this off. So I know that I need 2 inches. Huh. So I use a lineman plier. And I know that this is probably right down in the throat here. So I just come up 2 inches. Make a mark. And then when I'm using these, I'm gonna crimp a little bit, turn it, crimp it, turn it, crimp it, turn it. Because if I don't, I get a wide flat spot on one side. And at home, I'll just run it on my 12-inch disc sander and be done with it. But when you're doing a demo and you don't have your 12-inch disc sander, you just work your way around it. And what that does is doesn't make it fat. Now I can just use a piece of sandpaper and real quick take any burrs off. And it fits.
Normally you would stand and finish it.
Yep.
Do you put a finish on the inside with the pepper horns on?
No. What's that? So, yeah, how much do I get for those? So that one, since it's just a piece of walnut, $65. $65. So in my shop, I can do a set of those in an hour and 15 minutes. I can do the salt and pepper grinder sets. $10. Well, the crush grind ones are about $15. The Penn State ones are about 10. Yeah. A shaker. I don't know how the other ones work.
The other ones are two pieces, they don't come apart or they come apart.
So the crush grind is ceramic, so it's okay with the salt. Is the Penn State one also ceramic? So it's okay with salt?
Yeah, the question was the ceramics, are they good with salt? Yes, the Penn State ones are ceramics, and so are the crush grind ones. The way they work is very similar. The Penn State one, the knob on the end, you can see the threads. This one looks a little bit more refined. The other one gives you a little more, you can adjust it coarser. This one, it's still pretty coarse at its coarsest setting. And I always back them all the way out to the coarsest setting and let people crank them down from there. Because if I set them too tight, inevitably somebody's going to pick it up at the farmer's market, mess with it. The next person's going to hit ceramic against ceramic. So I normally leave them backed pretty far out. And then I sell them. If I sell a set of them, I include the coaster. If they want the pepper grinder and the coaster, depending on how much I'm getting for the pepper grinder, a lot of times I just include it because those are mostly just pieces that I had laying around. So those ones, that one I got from Steve. So long story short, I left mine on my workbench and Steve had his wife bring me one. So Steve deserves a lot of credit for this, but Lori does, yes. So I get them off Amazon or through Penn State. Yeah. 50. Yeah, I don't remember what his price was, but I think I found and then they make two sizes. They make ones for the 8-inch and they make one that goes to 11. That one I just had was for an 11-inch. That'll go up to 11 inches, but I very rarely see people that want an 11-inch pepper grinder.
They also make one without a stem. Yeah. I haven't used it, but has no stem. It's more complicated to put together.